The movie begins with a young man named Ron in a police lockup, packed in with a bunch of other inmates. The cops had found some illegal drugs on Ron, which led to his arrest, and now he was being brought before a judge. The judge sentenced Ron to 6 months in prison for his crime. When Ron arrived at the prison, he saw that it was completely divided by gangs. African Americans, Mexicans, and Caucasians all had their own separate crews. After asking around a bit, one inmate told him to go talk to Earl. He might be able to help. Earl was a really powerful inmate in this prison. Every gang respected him a lot. He'd been locked up for murder for the last 18 years. Ron wanted to ask him for some advice about his case, but Earl just said, "Maybe if I got time right now, I got no time," and walked off like he had somewhere better to be than prison. After that, Earl made a plan with his friends to rob another inmate, because he had something they wanted. When the guy didn't give it up nicely, they beat him and took it by force. Just as a guard spotted them, they quickly disappeared as if nothing had happened, like a magic trick nobody asked for. Being in this prison for 18 years meant Earl knew all the guards well. In fact, he was even good friends with the captain. Earl would often type up prison reports and other minor notices for the captain, basically running the office, like an unpaid intern. Ron's cellmate was a transgender inmate who warned him to be careful because he was smooth-looking. "You gotta protect your pretty little white ass." The cellmate said, "This prison is crawling with brutes." That same evening, Vito, one of Earl's friends, saw Ron talking to an inmate named Mike. Vito knew exactly what kind of guy Mike was. He told Earl that an attack on Ron was coming soon. Meanwhile, Ron's cellmate also urged Ron to get his hands on a sharp knife as soon as possible so Ron could protect himself. The next day in the gym, Ron asked Earl how and where he could get a sharp knife-like weapon. He also told Earl the whole story about Mike. Earl advised him, "Look, you're only here for a few months. If you get caught up in fights, your sentence could get longer." After that, Earl himself went to meet Mike with his friends. He told Mike that the new kid Ron was his relative, and if anything happened to him, Earl would come for revenge. Earl knew everyone in every gang in the prison. Mike figured making an enemy of the godfather of the prison over some new guy would be too costly, so he immediately listened to Earl and backed off. Soon enough, Ron started hanging out with Earl's gang too. One day, 3 inmates from Earl's gang were secretly drinking their homemade hooch on the first floor of the prison when some guards got a whiff of it. But before the guards could get to them, Ron already tipped them off. Still, they couldn't dump all the booze, and the guards caught them along with Ron. As punishment, they were all thrown into separate cells. Earl really liked that Ron tried to protect his friends without thinking about himself. To thank him, Earl sent Ron a pack of cigarettes and a note hidden in a magazine through another inmate. The note said, "When they question you, stick to this. I didn't do anything." A week later, when the prison officers interrogated Ron, he completely denied drinking with any group. "The guards grabbed me for no reason." After this investigation, an additional year was added to the sentences of all the inmates involved, but Ron walked free. Also, while Earl was typing inmate reports in the captain's office, he wrote a lot of good things in Ron's report, hoping that his good behavior in prison would make the judge reduce his sentence during the next hearing. Afterwards, Ron met Earl and thanked him. Suddenly, Ron saw a man being stabbed to death right in front of him. He was terrified by this incident, and Earl also realized that Ron was an innocent kid who had no place in this prison. After that, he told Ron to go see the prison doctor. At Earl's request, the doctor faked a report of a fractured shoulder for Ron and admitted him to the prison hospital. One day, the captain came to see Ron there and told him that at Earl's request, he was moving Ron to Earl's gang cell block. There, he'd be safe with Earl and his crew. As soon as Ron came out of the hospital, he went to a common area to meet Earl. They were just chatting when suddenly, the African American gang refused to do any work in the prison and started a strike. When things really heated up and a full-blown fight broke out, the guards took control by blaring sirens and opening fire. All the inmates immediately hit the deck like it was a school fire drill with bullets. After subduing the inmates, the guards counted everyone and sent them back to their cells, only to find that 26 inmates had died in the riot. The prison was now on full lockdown. About 25 hours later, the captain went to Earl's room and told him, "Captain's clerk, kitchen workers. I can pull you out if you want." Earl asked a guard to call Ron to the kitchen. Earl gave Ron fresh hot food and explained that after such a riot, these kinds of protocols are followed to keep the inmates in line. Ron suddenly cut him off and asked Earl why he was helping him so much. He hadn't even known him a month ago. Earl replied that when he first came to this prison, he was about Ron's age. No one helped him back then, and to this day he remembers how scared he was. Earl didn't want the same thing to happen to Ron now. As time passed, Ron grew very close to Earl's gang. After studying Ron's entire case, Earl advised him, "You should take a course in prison. Also, get a job in the library or something. That'll get you good behavior points. And since you've already done 3 months here, the judge might just let you go at the next hearing." Taking Earl's advice, Ron started cutting inmates' hair in the prison barber shop and also joined a course inside the prison. It seemed like everything was going great, but this was the calm before the storm. During this course, a big burly inmate in his class noticed Ron. Earl had told Ron to stay out of any kind of trouble, so he thought it best to ignore this inmate named Johnson and just focus on his studies. But then one day, Johnson caught Ron alone in the washroom and tried to take advantage of him. However, their teacher also walked into the washroom, which made that brute let go of Ron. This incident deeply affected Ron, and now he felt disgusted by his own helplessness and weakness. He thought that if Earl and his friends weren't around, he wouldn't even be able to protect himself from these brutes for 2 days. Now, without telling Earl, Ron arranged for a large knife from an old inmate in the prison. He immediately went to attack Johnson with it, but that old inmate had already told Earl that Ron had taken a knife from him today. Earl quickly rushed to Ron's room and explained, "Look, what happened to you was wrong, and the fire of revenge burning inside you was right too. But if you attack him and the guards even get a hint of it, you'll get another charge. Do you want to rot in prison forever?" Earl also promised Ron that he and his gang would definitely teach Johnson a lesson, but this time Ron wanted his revenge himself. Without telling Earl, he took his knife and went to the guy's cell. But Johnson wasn't scared of Ron at all. Meanwhile, not finding Ron in his room, Earl also quickly got there. And as soon as he saw Johnson, he attacked him. But Johnson was pretty strong. He twisted Earl's arm and slammed him against the prison bars. Just then, Ron saw his chance from behind and stabbed Johnson in the back. By now, Earl's other guys, including Vito, had also arrived, and they quickly got Ron and Earl out of there. Earl sent Ron back to his cell, then went to the captain's office, and sat there as if nothing had happened. His plan might have worked, but unfortunately, Johnson survived despite being stabbed and had given Ron and Earl's names to the guards. Because of this, both of them were thrown into solitary confinement for the attempted murder of an inmate. They would now have to stay in a dark, isolated room until their hearing. But Earl wasn't just going to sit around. He sent a message to his guys through the toilet drain pipe, telling them to get rid of Johnson. After that, his gang had Johnson killed in the hospital, so he couldn't testify against Earl and Ron in court. After Johnson's death, the prison warden and some lawyers called Earl for a meeting and said, "You were fully involved in this attack. Confess to it." But Earl refused to admit to anything. After Earl left, the prison warden told his officers that this inmate had become too powerful in this prison. He was getting anyone killed whenever he wanted. He instructed them to ask the judge to extend Earl's sentence and transfer him to another prison where he wouldn't have so much sway. They also mentioned this incident in Ron's report and demanded that the judge increase his sentence because, according to the warden, Ron had also become a dangerous member of Earl's gang. Soon Ron was taken for his next court hearing. There, based on the warden's recommendation, the judge added 5 more years to his sentence. Hearing this, Ron blew up and started cussing out the judge and his lawyer. After that, the police officer grabbed him and took him back to the holding cell. Ron's father came to meet him there, and seeing his son in such a state, he emotionally said, "I'm going to sell the house and get the money to get you out of here. I'm not going to let you rot in here. I'm not." That same evening, the captain went to meet Earl in solitary confinement, bringing some cigarettes and bad news. Actually, the new prison warden and some officers had planned to transfer Earl from this prison because after spending so many years there, Earl's network had become incredibly powerful within the prison, and he was now a huge threat to everyone. That's why the officers were deliberately trying to pin the hospital murder on Earl too, because that guy was going to testify against him and Ron. Hearing all this from the captain, Earl felt anxious for the first time in his life, because he didn't want to leave this prison under any circumstances. He immediately started cooking up a plan. First, he told the guards who brought him food to stop giving him any. Then, using a small blade, he drew a little blood from his hand and smeared it on his body. Seeing Earl in this condition, the guards now thought that maybe Earl's mental balance had gone off due to staying in solitary confinement for too long. So they immediately pulled him out and put him in the mental ward. Once he was out, Earl first met Ron, and when he found out that Ron would also be in prison for many more years, he immediately decided to make a plan to break out of prison with Ron. For this, Ron first asked his father to arrange a safe hideout for him and Earl once they got out of prison. After that, Earl kept a close eye on everything happening in the prison so he could find an escape route with no chance of being caught. During this time one day, they were discussing their plan while taking showers when a crazy inmate came and started singing loudly. When Earl tried to get him to stop, the guy suddenly attacked Earl and Ron with a weapon made from a toothbrush. Earl got hit in the chest and Ron in the face, so both of them were sent to the prison hospital. This attack was done by an African-American inmate. Because of this, all the Caucasian inmates now wanted revenge no matter what, and the atmosphere in the prison was very tense. But then one day, a leader of the African-American gang came straight to the hospital to meet Earl. He told Earl that the guy who attacked him was actually mentally unwell. He had just done it because he was crazy, and now he wanted Earl to tell the white gang members not to stir up trouble for no reason, because the inmates would only end up losing. Everyone in the African-American gang also respected Earl a lot, and that leader assured Earl that they were willing to punish that guy themselves. Earl also didn't want a senseless fight to break out in the prison, so he told all his guys not to take any action. After this, a dangerous man from the African-American gang killed the attacker and threw him into the prison's garbage truck, so his body would be crushed in the garbage truck and get out of prison. As soon as Earl found out about this, an escape plan immediately formed in his mind. He then told Ron that the garbage truck comes and goes from the prison every day, but it's never checked inside because the drivers always crush the garbage. And because of this fear, no one has ever tried to get inside. But if they managed to hide inside without getting crushed, their freedom was waiting for them. This was a very dangerous task. So Earl asked for help from his oldest associates, and after hearing the entire plan, they bribed the garbage truck employees to agree to the job. Meanwhile, the inmates working in the kitchen arranged 2 large iron rods for both of them, which they thought were strong enough to stop the crusher. After finishing all the preparations, Earl and Ron were now ready to break out of prison. The night before, Earl sat down with all his closest associates one last time and said goodbye to them, because after 18 years he was going to escape from there the next morning. The next morning, as soon as they came out of their rooms, Ron and Earl quietly slipped into the kitchen, where some inmates helped them hide from the guards. Because of this, they managed to get the garbage bags in those iron rods straight to the garbage truck. Ron quickly jumped into the truck, hidden from the guard's view. But just as it was Earl's turn, a guard suddenly showed up. Because of this, Earl couldn't jump into the truck, even if he wanted to. The guard then closed the door and stood there talking to the truck driver. At that very moment, Ron, who was inside the truck, saved his life by wedging the iron rod between the crusher. And a little later, the truck left the kitchen area and reached the gate. During the routine check, none of the guards noticed Ron inside. They just checked under the truck as usual and let it go. At this moment, Earl was praying with all his might that the truck would successfully get out of the gate because he was genuinely happy for Ron. And finally, their plan worked, but without Earl. After this, Earl went to meet Vito. And when he told Vito about his failure, Vito said, "Brother, what would you even do outside prison? Everyone knows the warden is just a name. You run this prison. You're the king here. And if you leave, where would the fun be, my friend?" Hearing Vito's words, Earl smiled faintly. So, in your opinion, was Earl not being able to leave prison a bad thing or a good thing? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.